By a show of hands, how many of you have ever heard of St. Denis? Okay, all right, I've told this story before. This is one of my favorite stories from church history. I've shared it with y'all before, but I love it too much, so I'm going to share it again because apparently not all of you remember what I said. Throughout church history, there are many stories of incredible folks doing incredible deeds. People like St. Francis or St. Teresa or St. Nick. For me, though, none of them surpass my love for the story of St. Denis. In the 3rd century AD, probably around the year 250, the Italian-born Denis was sent out to preach to the people of Gaul, in an area that is now pretty well known as Paris, France. At that time, the churches in Gaul were under tremendous persecution by the Roman Emperor Decius. Good old Denis shows up, as well as some other bishops who were sent, and they were so effective at creating converts that some religious leaders of other religions became threatened. So they took their means of vengeance. After a lengthy imprisonment, Denis was beheaded, becoming a martyr. But that's not the end of the story. According to legends, Denis then proceeded to pick up his head and then walk through the town preaching a sermon the whole time. When he was finished with all of his words, then he finally laid himself to rest. St. Denis is now one of the patron saints of France. You can see statues of him on some churches where it's a man holding a head on his side. My question to you is, do you believe that actually happens? Spoiler alerts, I don't. Do I think it's possible? Still, no, I don't. Not at all, actually. Despite my love for the story, I cannot rationalize the absurdity of someone carrying their head through a town preaching a sermon with what I know to be true in the world in which I live, which people can't do that. Still, the story captivates me because I think it says something true about us. That death doesn't destroy a message. That life speaks on, even after tragedy. In fact, it may even amplify it. You see, truth is different from facts. I can believe the story of St. Denis to be true, even though I find the factual nature of it to be lacking. What's true about it is that death doesn't silence a message. Death does not get the final word. Sure, that final word cannot come through a decapitated head, but the message rings out nonetheless. Doubt for me here is not a hindrance. It's not a failure to believe something that I should believe in. Doubt really has made me who I am today. Who I am is not who I was. I, for one, am grateful for that. My beliefs have changed drastically. I'm wiser, more loving, more compassionate, more steadfast in my pursuit of justice. I assume the same can be said of many, if not all, of you. The path, the road by which we have traveled to arrive to where we are today has been filled with pain and heartbreak, disillusionment, doubts, and despair. The path, the road ahead of us will, I assume, be filled with much of the same. Suffering, unfortunately, is one of life's greatest teachers. And doubt is often the path by which we arrive at those lessons. And doubt is how we have arrived to where we are today. So, Doubting Thomas, the guy probably did some really important work. I think it's safe to assume that he'd probably want to be known for more than just his one moment of doubts. But alas, history doesn't always grant people what they want. We know this guy is Doubting Thomas, not Loving Thomas or Wise Thomas or Funny Thomas or any number of other labels. Nope, it's Doubting Thomas. It's stuck forever. So Jesus was just brutally executed mere days prior. People witnessed his death and burial. But according to ancient sacred myth, Jesus came back to life. Easter was just last Sunday, where we retell that story. And when he came back to life, he did so secretly, appearing to just a few people at a time. It was not a grand re-entrance into the land of the living. There was no brass fanfare to loudly announce the resurrection of a very dead man. No, he appeared quietly and secretly to just a handful of people. One of these appearances was the disciples one evening. Jesus stands among them and says, "Peace be with you." Thomas, though, wasn't there. The disciples, of course, told him because this is wild. I mean, Jesus is back from the dead. And Thomas's response, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands and put my finger in the mark of the nails and put my hands in his side, I will not believe." I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty gross. I have no interest in putting my hands into anyone's wounds. I'm not in the medical field for a reason. Just show me, I'll believe you. A week later, Jesus shows back up. What was he doing for a week? Who knows? I hope he took a much-needed vacation. I've heard the Caribbean is really lovely this time of the year. Once again, Jesus stands among the disciples and says, "Peace be with you." And he turns to Thomas and says, "What the heck, man? Why didn't you believe?" No, of course not. He didn't respond that way. Instead, Jesus says, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hands and put it in my side." Again, ew. But I guess you gotta do what you gotta do. What is remarkable about this response, though, is that Jesus doesn't scold Thomas for not believing. Quite the opposite, really. Jesus invites him in, closer. Thomas's doubt became an invitation to intimacy. Doubt didn't become a barrier between them. It became a bridge, one that Thomas excitedly crosses. Doubt was the path. But we humans don't do well with uncertainty. We are meaning-making machines, resting quite uneasy in mystery. When we don't understand something, we struggle. Questions and doubt, they plague us, not allowing us to rest. This is one reason why myth and story are so important to us, because it helps us to make sense of a world that we can never begin to understand. Our religious beliefs operate on a whole other level when it comes to this. Our religious tradition usually brings with it community, a sense of belonging. Church, then, is not just a belief system, it's the people who surround us in times of great joy and in times of great sorrow. Church is who brings us food when we're sick. It's who calls us when a loved one passes. It's who visits us in the hospital. It's who hikes with us in the woods. It's who laughs with us on game nights. It's who drinks coffee and eats biscuits with us early in the morning. It's who dines with us at nights. And what makes doubt so scary then is that we risk losing our community because of it. When we begin to question the faith we once had, the faith of those whom we loved, we begin to question a fundamental aspect of that community. For many of us, changes in our beliefs have cost us something, have cost us some relationships with family, with friends, with peers, with very dear people in our lives. Deep within us is a longing to belong. And any threat to that is just that. It's incredibly threatening. That's why so many people refuse to change their beliefs. It's not because of stubbornness or hard-heartedness necessarily. It's a way of protecting themselves and their community. They fear to lose something fundamental to who they are as people. And they're not wrong for doing so. What's wrong is our perception of community, about who we perceive to belong to us and to whom we belong. So many communities are exclusive, denying people belonging because of some arbitrary label. It's our divine task to keep broadening the borders of who we say is us. And hopefully we can lead others into a new way of being in which everyone belongs. And my friends, doubt is the path. We've got to question the way things are, because the way things are unsustainable. I had to doubt in the faith of my upbringing because I came from a religious tradition that taught me to be exclusive, taught me to hate those who were different from me, taught me to hate myself. I had to doubt in the social and political beliefs of my upbringing because it taught me to only care about myself and not care about the marginalized or oppressed. Doubting in the way of life I once had has led me into a way of being that is more loving, more caring, and more compassionate for all people. And doubt is the path by which I have found God in places and in people that I never could have imagined. Jesus has shown up in the room and has said, "Peace be with you." I reached out my hands and I touched the pain that was before me. And in touching the wounds of the world, I have had my heart explode with a wondrous and abundant love that knows no bounds. Doubt is scary. It can feel like we've lost the ground we once felt firm on. But it is only in losing that we can find something more beautiful. My friends, I lost who I thought I was, only to find who I truly am. May the same be said of each of you, and may the same be said of the world's.